This is the Paracave Podcast, proudly brought to you by major sponsor Jack's Pale Ale, exclusively available at Parramatta Leagues Club, Shannon Cooney from Glenmore Park Realty, Bo Cook from Loan Market, BTZD, the official apparel partner of the Paracave Podcast, and the Parramatta Times, the official media partner of the Paracave Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. And now over to your host, Troy Warner, broadcasting live from the world-famous Paracave.
And yes, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Paracave Podcast. It's grand final week and this is the replay chat I have with the Duckman on Pulse FM, 89.9 FM, every Friday and Sunday night. And tonight, this podcast, we review the prelim finals between the Broncos and the New Zealand Warriors, and also the Penrith Panthers versus the Melbourne Storm. And we also chat about the NRLW as well. Two games played there to get into the grand final. The Sydney Roosters versus the Gold Coast Titans, and the Newcastle Knights up against the Brisbane Broncos as well. So a little bit of a chat about those games, and also a chat about defunct NRL teams from the past. So your likes of your North Sydney Bears, your South Queensland Crushers, your Western Reds, as well as University Rugby League, and also Glebe as well. So check this one out. This is the replay chat of my talk with the Duckman on Pulse FM, 89.9 FM with the Duckman. So I'll hand over to him. Over to you, Duckman.
All right, welcome back to the Weekend Sports Wrap. You're here with the Duckman live on Pulse FM with special guest Troy Warner from Paracave Podcast. Troy, how you going?
Going fantastic, Duckman. What a prelim final weekend of rugby league, both in the men's and the women's. And now we know our grand finalists, and it is grand final week now. So a very special week indeed for rugby league, for both the players and the fans of the game.
Yeah, absolutely huge. I was just speaking to Richard before about the AFL, how Brisbane in the grand final in rugby league and the AFL, he thinks it's very huge. I think it's good because it's only a few years ago and they had a very good Super Rugby side that was right up there too. And the Brisbane Maroon A-League were very, very competitive as well. So it just shows how strong it is in Australia and the whole sports world. How good is it to have the Gold Coast Titans, they managed to get a win against the Roosters in NRLW today, 12-0, to get into the grand final. So that's unbelievable. I think that's their first side that's made the NRL grand final too in any competition, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And look, it's going to be a massive week in Queensland, that's for sure. I mean, as you said, you got the Brisbane Lions in the AFL, you got the Brisbane Broncos in the NRL, and you've also got the Gold Coast Titans in the NRLW. So definitely sport in Queensland is definitely, I guess, right up there as being the successful, I guess you could call it, state in sport, Australia. I mean, Queensland won the State of Origin series as well earlier on in the year. But yeah, look, congratulations to the Gold Coast Titans in the NRLW for defeating the Roosters today, 12-0 in their clash. Some would say it was a major upset, you could say, with the Roosters red-hot favourites going into that game. But it just shows you anything can happen on the day.
Yeah, that's right. Just unbelievable stuff. So I really do like it that they've been able to capitalise on that and make the grand final. What's done is it's shown someone outside the top, like the top three sides, 100% made the top four as well. So the Knights, Broncos, and Roosters, they were the strongest by a fair way, to be honest with you. So for the Titans to make that, they've really bucked the trend. They had a very, very good season this year, and yeah, you're rewarded for your hard work and hard effort. They had to grind it out against the Roosters, against a very, very good Rooster side, to get a 12-0 win. And the other game, the Knights won 30-24 against the Broncos, which probably was expected, and they went hammer and tong at it too to get the win there. So it's a good game, and it's going to be a great grand final next weekend.
Yeah, for sure. The defending premiers, the Newcastle Knights, they're into their second consecutive grand final, and look, they were in control of the game, 18-4 at half-time, and you thought maybe Newcastle, they're going to sail into this game. They had, I think, 12,000 odd there at McDonald Jones Stadium, so support was good. But the Broncos, they came back and nearly got the victory over the Newcastle Knights. It ended up 30 points to 24, so... look, the Newcastle Knights, they'll go into the grand final, I guess you could say, as favourites against the Gold Coast Titans. But, I mean, don't take anything away from the Broncos. They had a slowish sort of start to the season. They got some wins together, got some confidence together, and almost made it again. They're a champion side, the Broncos. And look, next week's grand final is going to be really interesting. The Knights versus the Gold Coast. And look, a few people have actually said that, fans have said that in the women's game, I don't know how they're going to do it, but I mean, there's only one finals week in the NRLW, and if you don't get it right the first week, then you're out for the competition. And if you only have one win in the finals, then you're into the grand final. So I don't know whether maybe sort of changing that, but I mean, I suppose
first versus second, and then the winner goes to the preliminary final, third versus fourth for the other spot, and then loser out, and the winner plays in the final to see who plays the winner of the first game in the grand final or something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
That's similar to a model they have in rugby, and it works. It works for a smaller team competition.
Yeah,
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, as I said, I mean, they've only got 1 week of finals. I mean, the timing of it coincides with the NRL grand final, so they can be both played on the same day. So do you start the NRLW 1 week earlier or something like that, just to have another finals weekend? I don't know, but I mean, it does seem a little bit unfair, you could say. I mean, last year, I know with Parramatta, they won one game during the regular season. They made it into the top 4, and then they won their final, and then they were in the grand final. So it can be it must be a tough one for those sides that lost. I mean, especially for someone like the Roosters, who were favourites. I think one of the favourites going into this competition, and now they've lost today and they're out of the competition. So, but it just shows you that you've got to be right up there on the day.
But here's the legitimate claim I'll put out there, right? So the Roosters were second, Titans were third. So literally you have that scenario I just talked about. So it might be different if the Broncos had beaten the Knights and knocked them out. You might have a different conversation there. But when the Knights played the Titans earlier in the year, the Knights won that game. I'm trying to find out what happened when the Titans played the Roosters. Well, the Roosters crunched them the first time 30 points to 8. So still had to get the job done. Yeah. So it's just due to the lack of the number of teams. How many games do you want to have at a shot? So the third beat second. That doesn't get much better than that. It was a competitive game. It wasn't a blowout.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how you hide behind any reasons. It's just the best sides won on the day. That's what you want to have. That's how you prepare up for a grand final. Now to set it up. So I actually genuinely think Gold Coast could win the game now. So they're a serious dark horse. I'd be keen to see what the odds are they're paying next week, and maybe have a look at dropping $5 or $10 on them to see if they can get the win. So they're not the favourite. They're not the favourite by some way, but they've got a serious chance. They're in the grand final now, and I think they've got a chance of winning Gold Coast first ever grand final.
Well, just looking at it quickly here on the NRL website, it's got the Gold Coast Titans at $2.50 and Newcastle at $1.54. So that's through Sportsbet. So gamble responsibly, but not massive outsiders. So you could be right. They could spring their first upset victory as the Knights will go in as favourites and win the Gold Coast Titans franchise, either men's or women's first rugby league title.
Yeah, and that'll be great for the whole competition, right? So I want to see a bit more diversity in teams making the finals, teams winning finals. So if you see the same thing year after year after year after year, like St George winning 11 competitions in a row is significant to the history of rugby league and the makeup of it. But I don't think it should ever happen again.
We'll never see that again, don't worry.
Yeah, I don't think so. So even Penrith, if they win 3 in a row tomorrow, next week, I just don't. I can't see how you can have a dynasty. The salary cap levels and equals out the competition because your players increase in value. You eventually need to move them on, unfortunately. So it's unfortunate for Penrith, unfortunate for other clubs because like West Tigers and that, and they did pick up a couple of good players. They're obviously going to be looking at Penrith's ranks because Penrith have got a lot of good quality players and they can't hold on to everyone, can't maintain them all under the salary cap. So opportunities arise for other people. We'll jump into the NRL now itself. So back on Friday night, did you catch both of these games?
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't have missed them for the world. Prelim finals, they're probably the hardest games to watch of the final series as fans of the clubs that are involved. I certainly knew that from last year, but prelim finals, there's so much on the line trying to get into that grand final. There's so much to lose. And, definitely caught both of these games for sure.
Yeah. Now, back on Friday night, Panthers took on the Storm and they routed them there 38-4. It looked worse than what it was. Penrith were ultra clinical. I thought Melbourne were good and were in the game until Penrith got when they got their fourth try, I think it was, and got the 22. Then I realised Penrith's probably, it was about the 56th minute. I think Penrith even got to 26 or whatever. So it was their fourth or fifth try. They got it in the 50th minute or around 50 to 56. Once they did that, I went, okay, now we're probably going to win the game. Before that, I felt Melbourne were playing good too. They could keep going and keep going and keep going. And they picked a couple of angles to work at. They didn't go straight for Jerome Luai, which surprised me too. They decided, no, I think Isaac Targo is going to be a bit of a problem here too. So they targeted him and they got a bit of pay dirt with their try and they were happy to switch from side to side. Unfortunately for them, once Penrith got a lot of ball and possession, clicked in the gear a couple of times and put on a couple of tries. Liam Martin had an outstanding game along with Nathan Cleary, and Penrith were very hard to beat once they got in front by like 3 tries.
Yeah, for sure. Look, it was an interesting start to the game. Melbourne had a good first up defensive set and a good attacking set, so you thought that maybe they were on that night, Friday night, and look, Penrith scored the first try. Brian Toto got the first of his 3 tries, and then Melbourne hit back with Justin Olam scoring the try for Melbourne. So it got back to 4-4, and then Melbourne missed an opportunity to go ahead. I think Justin Olam knocked it on and missed a scoring opportunity. And then the Panthers, they scored 2 quick tries, 2 in 7 minutes, and they really tighten the screws. And Nathan Cleary, he was pretty clinical, leading the team around once again, scored a try himself, and Dylan Edwards got a try. And look, the Panthers, they just keep on rolling on, and it was 18-4 at half time. And you thought if Melbourne could get back and score a converted try after half time, they'd get back into the game. But Penrith just never let them back into the game, and they just kept on scoring. And their front rowers, Moses Leota and James Fisher-Harris, they weren't scared of the Melbourne Storm forward pack at all. Big Nelson, he tried to intimidate the Nathan Cleary, gave him a push. A few people thought he was going to be sin bin for that, but it was more than just a little push. So there was a few tense moments between the sides, a few push and shoves, but nothing eventuated from that. But look, congratulations to the Panthers. They make their 4th grand final in a row, and they are looking to go for the three-peat, something that hasn't been done since Parramatta in 81, 82 and 83.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do want to call out one of Penrith's players, that 100% underrated player for what he does on the field. Like, they don't talk about it much because they're normally talking about the flair and the strike weapons out the back and all this. Moses Leota, what he does you don't see. So the big hits to tackle, all this sort of stuff. He doesn't need to do the big offloads that Isaiah Yeo does. That's what Isaiah Yeo, that's how he plays. That's what he does. That's his game. But every side pretty much needs like a Moses Leota. It's going to go out there and just do the job, get through your 30, 40 tackles or whatever, do your 12, 15 hit-ups. They're not going to be the most significant ones ever. They're going to be all yardage breakers. They're just laying the groundwork so that then the guy next to you, James Fisher-Harris, who's a beast, he can run a bit of like a free rein too. He wouldn't be able to do that if Moses Leota wasn't doing what he could do. And Penrith dummy half wouldn't be able to get the sides on the back foot and that if Penrith forwards weren't going forward. So they really laid a platform for what happens in the outside backs. Moses Leota really is probably one of the most underrated players in the whole competition, definitely in the Panthers. So, he's got a much bigger influence on how they play even what a lot of other people realise. And he was the one that got over the top of Regan Campbell-Gillard last year and helped Penrith get the ascendancy in the grand final. So that sort of stuff is what all contributed there, and that's what happened that other night too. It took till 56 minutes as the try, but Penrith got in the 56 minute. That's once they scored that, I went, all right, sweet, okay, so we're off to the grand final, because Melbourne have got just that X-factor stuff with Munster. He can pull the stuff off out of nothing. So they dropped a couple of balls, and that just hurt them. Need to be clinical when you're playing against Penrith, unfortunately, for everyone. The next game was interesting to watch. The touch footy for the first half. The Broncos up against the Warriors. So the Warriors got in front, then the Broncos got a try. Then Dylan Watene-Zelezniak got an intercept. Then the Broncos got another try and conversion and stayed in front. So because Warriors kicking was spraying around a bit. Then the Warriors got another try, and then the Broncos got another try and converted it as well. But so they were in front at half time. But it was a very entertaining game. The Warriors at half time, they looked a bit shell shocked, like, oh, we didn't expect this to happen. Dylan Watene-Zelezniak, fantastic with the ball. He's got to stop trying to go for intercepts or coming inside to do stuff, put hits on, because they scored two soft tries on the outside of him, and they scored a try from dummy half. Then that pretty much just gave Brisbane easy like domination in the first half. Let them get on the front foot, and the Warriors never recovered from that.
Yeah, for sure. Look, there was 52,273 there at Suncorp Stadium, a ground record at Suncorp, and there was plenty of Warriors support up there in Brisbane. Obviously, more Broncos support there, but the Warriors, they started off right. They got the first try, as you said, through Dylan Watene-Zelezniak, and then Billy Walters scooted over from dummy half, and it was a bit of a try-for-try thing there. And I think the Warriors, they started off really well. But then I think the Broncos, they, as you said, Dallin came in a couple of times and they went around him. Some good vision from Reece Walsh and Adam Reynolds as well. Seeing that and getting the ball out wide to Jesse Arthurs, who scored a try, and Herbie Farnworth as well. Reece Walsh, he was outstanding as well. He was popping up everywhere. Involved in a bit of a controversial moment as well, with Jordan Ricky scoring before his try with the 2 metre forward pass, and then the pass back inside was also forward as well, but it wasn't called. And there's been a lot of calls from fans to say, well, can we get the bunker involved for howler forward passes like that? There's got to be something to do about that. But credit to Andrew Webster, the Warriors coach. He was asked about it in his press conference, and he said, look, we didn't lose the game because of those forward passes. We lost the game because we were falling off tackles. We were giving away too many line breaks, and the Broncos were the better team. And look, Adam Reynolds, the Broncos bought Adam Reynolds for this moment next Sunday. He's got the experience of winning a grand final, playing in a grand final for South Sydney, and that's why they bought him to the Broncos, to teach these young guys how to play finals football, get their confidence up, and he'll have the experience. So no doubt he'll be busy this week talking to the young blokes about just enjoying the week, soak it up. We've still got a job to do, and that job's on Sunday.
Yeah, that's right. So the big X factor thing they got there is Reece Walsh. Getting him has been fantastic. So he's made the difference this year between this year and last year for them. And that's not criticising last year. Last year was a fairly good year for the Broncos, but when they got injuries and Reynolds was out, they dropped off. Getting wins and getting on the front foot and being up near the top of the ladder for the whole season, well, that's brought out the best in Payne Haas. It's brought out the best in a lot of their players as well. So Carrigan, he's a very underrated player too for the Broncos.
Yep, definitely.
And I think he does a lot of stuff at Carrigan. He's really helped get them, does it for Queensland as well. They've done a lot of stuff. So the Broncos, they've got these X-factor players too, but they can go off the big game. So, if you're looking for someone for value, if you're going to bet on on the Clive Churchill medal player, if you look outside of, Reece Walsh would be an obvious one, Adam Reynolds if the Broncos won. For Penrith, you'd be looking at probably Cleary or Isaiah Yeo, someone like that. If you looked outside the box, Pat Carrigan would probably be that guy, would be the outside the box guy you'd be looking at, because I think he needs to have a really big game and he probably needs to do something different to keep Isaiah Yeo on the back foot. So if he can do that, the Broncos can beat Penrith. They've got the players to beat Penrith. They just need to bring their A game. They're going to need to tackle better than that too. If they let Penrith do what the Warriors did, they're going to fall behind and they're not going to catch up, because Penrith don't give away a lot of points classically. So the Broncos are going to have to grind it out a bit harder than that if they're going to win this grand final. So although they did a lot of offloads in the point of contact last night against the Warriors. I saw that when they do a hit and spin, and it looked like the tackle was all but complete, and then they popped the ball out and they were able to go on second phase play. That sort of stuff is what might undo Penrith. So that's something that is out of the box, that Penrith are really good for the textbook stuff. If you play a little bit out of the box or off the cuff, that stuff might get you a bit of reward there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, as you mentioned there, the offload game from the Broncos really hurt the Warriors. That second phase play definitely put them undone, because they were making breaks, and Reece Walsh coming through the back there, finding that breaks in the middle of the field, and they just couldn't wrap up the ball and led to tries. But look, the Broncos, their back three against the Penrith back three, the middles, that'll be a great clash there. And as you said, Pat Carrigan, he's sort of one of those, well, he had a great season last year, represented Australia at the World Cup, played for Queensland, won the Wally Lewis medal for player of the series. So I think, yeah, you're right there. He could be an outsider chance of the others that you mentioned in the Clive Churchill medal betting there. But look, full credit to the Warriors, a great season that they had. I think they finished 15th last year, prelim final this year. I think in the sheds after the game, I think Sean Johnson, he addressed the team, and I think one thing that was sort of mentioned was, look, we've had a great year this year, but we can go at the next step next year. So they've got Roger Tuivasa-Sheck coming back, Chanel Tavita-Harris coming back as well. So they've got a couple of recruits there, so they can, and they're not really losing anybody either. So it's going to be an interesting off-season for them, and hopefully they can build on this and again next year challenge for the title. So look, it's going to be a great grand final between the Broncos and the Panthers next Sunday at Accor Stadium, and it should be an 80+ thousand crowd there too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do wonder if this might be Penrith's last year in a grand final in a row. I'm a Panthers fan, and it's their fourth grand final in a row. I think they've got a serious chance of winning 3 in a row here. You can't stay up forever now, just the way the salary cap is. They're losing Stephen Crichton next year. He made a massive difference last night too. So they've just got talent all over the park. So if you keep losing that talent, Penrith have got other good players that are going to come through, but they're not the strike player that Stephen Crichton is, because Stephen Crichton effectively can be an X-factor player like Reece Walsh is. So Penrith have got a couple of them guys. So They number out on the Broncos a little bit better than that. It'll be interesting to see how long and what next season looks like. The Warriors will do very well. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, he's a very good pickup, even though he's into his 30s now too. I think he'll be very good. Going to have a look at some other stuff here. So I told you to bring up through the week, so I'm not sure if you got it up. A look at the clubs that have been the NRL in the past. So not worried too much about the ones that are there now, and I'm pretty much happy to go through a list. I've got a list here of clubs that have been in the NRL and not there anymore. We're talking about Adelaide Rams, Annandale, Balmain Tigers, so they've become West Tigers, but not recognised as Balmain anymore. Cumberland, Glebe Dirty Reds, got about 28 variations of Gold Coast. So Gold Coast Tweedheads, the Giants, the Seagulls, the Chargers, Hunter Mariners, Illawarra Steelers, Newcastle Rebels. So they were one that started in the very first year, foundation year of rugby league, and the Newcastle local rugby union blew up in arms, and they stopped that from happening pretty much, ultimately. Newtown Jets, Bears, North Sydney Bears, for anyone who doesn't know who the Bears are specifically. Northern Eagles, St George Illawarra or St George Dragons, South Queensland Crushers, University, Western Reds, Perth Reds, Western Suburbs Magpies. So we'll jump out of the popular ones. University, so I had a bit of a look at some of their stats before. So when were they in the comp? From 1920 until 1937. In the first year they came ninth. Apparently they were runners-up in 1926 and never won a minor premiership. They did win 12 wooden spoons. So
wow.
In 921, 23, 24, 27, 29, 30, 31, 32, 34, 35, 36, 37. So they're nearly as good as my soccer teams that I was coaching when I played at Henry Lawson for years. We managed to be able to clutch defeat from the jaws of victory very often. So, these guys, they weren't flash. So they probably had it up against them too. So to say University, for anyone to know, is basically Sydney Uni Rugby League Football Club. They're in competition with Sydney Rugby Union Club, or Sydney Uni Football Club, which is their rugby club, and they are pretty much one of the best sides in the whole competition. So, and have been for like when they started in 1865 or whenever they kept telling everyone they started. So over 160 odd years, they've been the best. So these guys, unfortunately, had the blokes that the Sydney Uni Rugby Club rejected. So by the look of it, trying to find any anomalies of clubs that won premierships here. Let's have a look at some of these. Newtown Jets, so they won 3 back in the day. They're still kicking around. So I used to do deliveries into Newtown. I can't remember the street name. You can buy a Newtown. They've got a full-time office down there where they make merchandise and sell it. And they do a fair bit of trade. So it surprised me.
Yeah.
North Sydney Bears, so they were in the New South Wales, the reserve grade grand final today against
Cup
South?
today, yeah, and they went down 22 points to 18 against South Sydney, who will play the East Tigers next Sunday in the Interstate Championship.
Yeah, so the Bears only ever won 2 premierships in the actual competition. That was 1921-22. The last grand final they ever made, looking at this, is 1943. Do you reckon they're perennially the most unlucky team in rugby league or what? So
potentially, there was the time there in the late 90s, the early 90s, where I think they made about 5 or 6 prelims in a row or something like that. They just couldn't get across the line.
Louis was coaching, yeah.
But they've had some great players from over the years. I mean, Greg Florimo, Billy Moore, Gary Larson,
Jason
Taylor, Mark Graham, Olsen Filipana. They had
some outstanding guys. Definitely had a lot of them. So trying to find. There's some just looking back at the stats. It's good to look at this every once in a while and see somewhat like West. They haven't won a comp since 1952 before they merged with West Tigers and picked up the comp in 2005. And even Balmain hadn't won a comp since 1969 before the joint merger. So let's look at Glebe Dirty Reds here. So never won a competition. Did win the minor premiership in 1911. So runners up in 1911, 1912, 15 and 22. So they've had it pretty tough. They had it tough as well. And they had some tough blokes playing for them as well. Frank Bird used to play for them as well. I think when they played against Daly Messenger when he was playing for East, but really took their chance when they won the minor premiership in 2011. Daly Messenger ripped the victory from him in the grand final, so they never really a chance when you consider all of that. Wow! So if you looked at some of the notable players that have been around and done different stuff.
So yeah, I've picked out a couple of the clubs that you mentioned, and one of them was the South Queensland Crushers, who were started in 1995. Were only around for a few years, and their biggest loss was 58-4 against Canberra in 95. Their biggest win was against Western Suburbs, 39-18 in 1997. And some of the notable players that played for them, obviously Trevor Gilmeister, Dale Shearer, Mario Fennick, and for anyone who's listening who used to watch the footy show...
that's how he got the nickname Golden Falcon, because he got whacked in the head.
That's right, whilst playing for the South Queensland Crushers against Parramatta. You've got Scotty Sattler, Mark Tukey, one player actually a USA Rugby League international with a great name, I reckon, Steele Retchless. He played 11.
I remember him.
Yeah, he played 11 games for the Broncos. He played 22 for the Crushers and made a name for himself over in England, playing 201 games for the London Broncos.
Yeah, he was a good player, actually. He was a decent player. These are all the things that back in the day stuff, looking at Steele Retchless's picture, it looked like they're taking it through a potato, so when you try to have a look at it. So it's a decent photo of the guy, but not super flattering. So had good players like Travis Norton too. He was a tough player too before he went to Canterbury. I think that's where he started off as well with the Crushers. Like when those sides came in, the thing I liked about it gave other people an opportunity to get their start and then move on elsewhere. So that's like the Hunter Mariners. Hunter Mariners really pretty sure they gave both the Kamorleys a chance, Brett and Craig, who were both in Newcastle, and they've really got that chance at Newcastle because they had the Johns brothers above them.
Yeah, definitely.
So they got a good chance there, and they actually made the Super League Grand Final, if I'm right, in their first season too, I think. So another championship.
Another player who sort of made a name for himself in one of these defunct clubs, the Western Reds, was Matt Geyer, brother of Big MG, Mark Geyer, who also played for the Western Reds, and he made his start at the Western Reds, and then he went on to Melbourne and won a premiership and played for New South Wales, and sort of made a name for himself outside of Mark's shadow, I guess you could say. But one of their highlights was their first ever game against St George at the Wacker, and they defeated them in that game. And the Guy brothers are two of their notable players. Brad Mackay, Rodney Howe, Robbie Kearns also played over at the Western Reds. And look, there's a little bit of talk about whether an 18th team will come out of WA in the future. They've got a competition going on over there at the moment, so that's a potential option for the NRL to have a WA team back in the competition.
Yeah, I think it's something they need to look at again. I definitely would. So if we want to populate the whole of Australia, that's the place to go. Then you'll have a pretty diverse comp. So not sure, like they did have Adelaide Rams, who financially they were successful. So, but they're in the trade-off when Super League got back with the NRL or ARL. They were one of the sides that got bumped and Melbourne came in. So there was always going to be, Melbourne were always going to come in. They've got a higher population base than Adelaide. But I was surprised that Adelaide was successful. Saying that, they did have guys like David Kidwell there as well. Had Dean Lance there who used to play for Canberra and won a couple of grand finals. Can't remember who else they had.
They had one of the other notable players there. Well, they had Kerry Walters as well, Kevin Campion, Cameron Blair, and also current New Zealand Kiwis coach Michael Maguire played there as well.
Yeah, there you go. It's unbelievable. Yeah, I remember Michael Maguire actually playing there. That's where he started off, I think, his career, first grade career.
He played in Canberra as well.
Yeah. So, yeah, did he play at Canberra before or after he played for Adelaide? I can't remember.
I think before.
Yeah.
But just getting back to the Western Reds, I think, yeah, definitely that would be a good opportunity for the NRL to have a team based there, because I know when cricket season comes along and Australia's playing a test over in WA, I just love the time difference of coming home and after a hard day's work and the cricket's on, I'll just watch that, and just because of that time difference. So it's certainly something they should look at.
Yeah, that's right. Now, this is why I actually don't think it's a bad idea for the NRL to consider expansion and set the comp up a bit like the Super Bowl. I'm not saying that's the best setup in the world, but the conference thing and all that, it's not a bad idea, right? So I do agree with you. I think every side needs to play each other at least once, so it's pretty hard to justify the comp. How do you do that at 24 sides? I suppose you can play everybody once and then one neutral game to get a 24th game, or you could probably just leave it at 23 if they went with that many extra teams. I don't know what that would probably mean. You're probably going to need to bump the reserve grade comp and just carry more players in your squad, like what they do in the English Super League. I'm pretty sure they don't run a reserve grade competition either. And might see that bring through a lot more younger guys into the comp earlier. So who knows? There's a big fight about it at the moment. I do think we'll get to 20 teams again. 24 might be hard to do so. But I'd like to see the NRL get the 24. I just don't know if it's achievable at this time in where the game's at. So what do you got coming up this week for Paracade Podcast anyway, Troy?
Oh, it's a big week, grand final week for the podcast. I've got a couple of interviews tomorrow with Chris Johns, former Broncos player, and also Ian Roberts as well, former Manly South player, New South Wales Kangaroo as well.
Chris Johns played with St George as well. Pretty sure Chris Johns played in the 1985 grand final. If you ask him, he might tell you that. I think he played off the bench for the Dragons.
Correct, he did, and was also a part of the Broncos' first and second winning teams, scoring a try in 93 grand final against St George. So looking forward to doing those and releasing those, but I'll also have a grand final podcast, tipping podcast as well come out, and then no doubt we'll have a preview on a Friday night as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely be doing that. Look forward to that. I'll let you get going, Troy. It's a very exciting week with all the things coming up in the NFL. Not sure if you caught the Formula One results today, but Oscar Piastri, he ended up on the podium, finished in third, which is his best ever finish too at the moment, which is fabulous for him. So it's good young Aussie driver, Oscar.
And just speaking, congratulations, Oscar. And just speaking of other sports stars, it was great to see over the weekend Mick Fanning, world surfing champion in the dressing sheds for the Panthers, a massive Panthers fan, and also his name just escapes me at the moment. Basketball player Paddy Mills. He's a massive Broncos.
Paddy Mills, yeah,
massive Broncos supporter.
Last night.
He was at the game last night, so it's great to see other sports stars supporting their teams. And look, it's a great week, grand final week. So listeners, if you, I think there's the footy festival happening on in the city throughout the week, and different events happening on during different times. So if you're a footy fan, it's great to get down there and check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Troy, thanks for your time. Look forward to having a chat with you again next Friday night. Have a fantastic week, and we'll catch up with you then. Not
a problem, Duckman. Thank you very much for having me. Enjoy grand final week.
Absolutely, will do. I'll catch you on Friday.
Thanks, mate.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Paracade Podcast. See you next time.